April 2003. I'd just been hired as a Grand Prairie police officer. I walked in on my first day of the police academy with all kinds of excitement, all kinds of joy, and let's face it, all kinds of nervousness. I made it through the academy, had a blast in the academy, and then the real fun began, right? Field training. Really starting to learn how to be a true cop. And then I got released from training. And I remember my first day on the streets, all kinds of excitement, all kinds of nervousness. I had made it. Most of us in first responder land know exactly that feeling. But what you don't know is the feelings that I had inside. You see, when I came into law enforcement, I wanted to help people. I wanted to make a difference in my community, but the reality was I was doing nothing to help myself. By the time I became a rookie cop, I was $80,000 in debt. $21,000 of that debt was tied up in one car stereo system. Yeah, just one. I had dug myself a hole, and I didn't know how to get out of it. And I discovered the most beautiful program in first responder land, overtime. And I started working a lot of it. And you'd think, okay, I'm working overtime to become debt-free. No, I was using overtime to just actually elevate my standard of living. I was going on fancy vacations, buying nice cars. Heck, on the outside, I looked like a very young, successful adult. On the inside, I was killing myself. How many of us know somebody that I just described? How many of us are looking at this video going, that's me? Well, luckily for me, my mentor was a 20-year veteran officer. He was my beat partner. He was one of those guys that would cram financial wellness into the rookies' heads. And at the time, I was introduced to Dave Ramsey, and I fell in love with his debt snowball and how to pay off debt at an accelerated rate. You see, the other scary part of this story is I met this girl named Carrie, and Carrie was the one I was going to marry. And her title changed from girlfriend to fiance, and I quickly realized that I had to tell her this ugly secret about me being $80,000 in debt. See, the problem was she had no debt. But when I sat down at the kitchen table that night to tell her, you can imagine the look on her face. I had a plan. And she looked at me and she said, you better. You see, I committed that day that I was going to use the debt snowball to pay off all $80,000 in debt before we became married. And so for the next 24 months, I worked over 1,000 hours of overtime. And on March 3rd, 2007, we got married. 100% consumer debt free. Everything but the house at the time. Now you're thinking, how does this apply to me? Well, I quickly realized that we don't do anything in first responder land to actually help our first responders win with money. We teach them how to be safe. We teach them all kinds of things about PTSD and how to get in shape and how to eat right. But when was the last time someone talked to you about money? Welcome to Building Financial Strength in First Responders. A first responder that self-taught myself the entire financial world, from getting out of debt all the way to investments and retirement planning. In 2011, my chief approached me and said, hey, Nick, I want you to build a class for my recruits. And thus was Building Financial Strength in First Responders born. Since that day, we've been honored and privileged to teach over 40,000 of our brothers and sisters from over 4,000 agencies across 28 states. So how do we learn how to win with money? Well, let me tell you about the core concepts that we teach first responders. Concept one, why do we even talk about this stuff? Well, a lot of us are living paycheck to paycheck because we got a government job, right? We get a paycheck every couple of weeks. We don't have to worry about getting laid off for the most part. Why do we even need to talk about this stuff? I'll tell you the most important concept that we're going to teach you, budgeting. Yeah, I know that wasn't a fun word to say, right? It's tough. How do we actually use the income that we have to actually do an every dollar budget? We call our concept, we teach the SWAT raid mentality of budgeting. How do we do our ops plan before the month begins? How do we debrief throughout the entire month? And how do we get together and actually form an after action plan to make sure that everything we thought was going to happen actually went according to plan? The next major concept you're going to learn about, death. We all die. How many of us actually take the steps to prepare our family for that fateful day? We don't do wills. We don't do legacy planning. We're going to go over all the key concepts of what you need to do to start the process to leave a legacy to your family. One of the toughest concepts is debt, right? We are bombarded by debt on a daily basis. The amount of money spent on marketing to market debt to us is insane. How do we learn how they market this stuff to us? And more importantly, how do we learn how to responsibly use it, right? Credit cards are here to stay. We need to learn how to responsibly use credit cards in a manner that doesn't cause us to hurt ourselves, but actually help ourselves. Who doesn't want to learn about retirement planning, right? What does your pension actually mean? What are the key concepts within your pension? What are the other plans you have available for us? We're going to start to dive deep into the 457 plans, the traditional IRAs, the Roth IRAs. Heck, let's talk about the stock market. How scary is the stock market? It actually isn't that scary when you start to understand about this stuff. Two of my favorite topics we cover: how to avoid getting ripped off by bad life insurance agents. Let's face it, how many of you have actually been to an association meeting and seen some so-called professional try to sell you products that you ultimately thought probably benefiting them more than it's benefiting for us, right? We got to learn how life insurance is sold, and more importantly, what's the purpose of it? I want my wife, Carrie, and more importantly, I want my two kiddos to live the same lifestyle tomorrow that we're living today if, God forbid, my income dies with my death. We got to figure out how to get help with this stuff. Do you actually trust financial advisors? No, you don't trust car salesmen either. I get it. Well, the reality is you need to know how to interrogate financial advisors. You interrogate the bad guys on the streets. You question people on the phone as dispatchers to try to elicit truth, to get the facts, or to get misled, right? We want them sometimes to mislead us so we can catch them in those lies. What are the key things you can ask financial advisors to kind of weed out the bad ones and find the good ones? That financial advisor that has the heart of a teacher to teach you what they're doing with your money and how to better your life financially with that. What gets us in trouble? Well, we're going to go over pitfalls of first responders, right? Separate accounts, toys and big purchases and vacations, not having a fail-safe plan on how to actually communicate and talk about money with our spouses. Well, that's fun with all the concepts, but how do we put that stuff together in a full plan? We've created what we call the 8 phases of financial training. How do we mimic field training in a mechanism that we understand that helps us start to mimic that within winning with money? We've all been through training, whether you're a cop, a firefighter, a dispatcher, detention, you name it. None of us get to start in phase 1 of training and get to go straight to phase 4. Now, if you're really good, i.e. you're a lateral, you can fast track through those, but we still have to go through the phases. And sometimes when we're going through our phases of training, we struggle with something and we got to step out and we got to go to remedial. When it comes to money, life is going to happen. There is no cookie cutter approach to money and there is no perfect plan. Something's going to happen. How many of you guys have had to replace a water heater? Anybody had a car breakdown? Anybody had a kid that broke a leg and had to go out of pocket max? Stuff's going to happen. And that's okay. Because when we go through the 8 phases of financial training, if you struggle because we have a life event, we have to step out, go to remedial, and then step back into the plan. 8 phases to really, truly start to win with money. Because I got to tell you, when you start to win with money, you get to have some fun with money, you get to give some money, and we get to all get to where we ultimately want to get to. The ability to retire with dignity and with enough money to last our entire life. That's our mission at FinancialCop. We want to create a nation full of first responders that after 20, 25, 30 years of service, you have the ability to retire if you want to or stay if you want to. But that decision is dictated based on your love of the job, not because we're chasing a pension.